In the whirl of technological breakthroughs at the beginning of the 20th century, there lived a man whose name should have shone brighter than the stars in the night sky of science and invention. However, fate decreed that his ideas would be forgotten and buried under layers of time, and most of his revolutionary discoveries remained unknown to the general public. This is about Nikola Tesla, a Serbian engineer and scientist whose thinking was so unusual and far-sighted that it seemed he saw not only the immediate future, but entire decades ahead. He dreamed of a world where energy would be accessible to everyone, and at the same time, wireless, limitless, and without any obstacles. And so, more than 100 years later, in a modest workshop where engineers inspired by the legacy of this great inventor worked, a true miracle happened. These engineers didn't just rediscover his long-lost secrets. They made them speak again, revealing to the world mysteries that seemed forever lost. Their discoveries are astonishing and evoke admiration. Before we proceed to the main part of the story, allow me to ask for a small favor. Your attention and interest are the best gratitude for our efforts. Your support is an incentive to continue. Thank you for your understanding and attention. Now imagine a person who was born not just out of his time, but as if in a completely different dimension of reality. Nikola Tesla was exactly such a person. His thinking was so free from the greed for profit and power that it often clashed sharply with the established world. While most people admired Edison, who laid miles of copper cables to light individual buildings and streets, Tesla already envisioned in his mind a global network where energy would spread freely without a single wire. He imagined the Earth, the atmosphere, and the space surrounding our planet transforming into giant conductors through which electricity flows like water in a river. To his contemporaries, his ideas seemed mystical and fantastic, but Tesla perceived them as pure science waiting for its moment to be realized. He was ready to share this knowledge with all who wished. His main goal was to create wireless energy transmission that could change the entire world. In 1884, upon arriving in New York, Tesla brought not only calculations and drawings, but also a grand dream: to convince Thomas Edison, a renowned inventor and businessman, of the advantages of alternating current, known as AC. Tesla was convinced that alternating current was the future of power supply, opening new horizons. Edison, on the other hand, was a supporter of direct current, or DC, which was expensive, inefficient, and required the construction of power stations on nearly every corner of the city. Edison refused to hear about alternating current and even rejected Tesla's ideas. Instead of supporting his opponent's innovative thinking, he merely suggested that he rework the existing power plant, which was the first blow to Tesla. After that, a financial conflict began, leaving Tesla unpaid and causing him deep disappointment. Their paths diverged, and it was from this moment that the legendary War of Currents started. This struggle between two great scientists became one of the most vivid episodes in the history of science and technology. However, for Tesla, this war brought not only difficulties but also unexpected allies. Among them was George Westinghouse, a man who not only saw Tesla's talent as an inventor, but recognized in him the architect of a new world. He believed in Tesla's idea of alternating current motors and became his reliable partner. These motors, based on the principle of a rotating magnetic field without sparks and expensive magnets, became the foundation for electrifying cities and industrial enterprises. They still form the basis of most modern electric motors and power countless devices without which modern life would be unimaginable. By the 12th year of the last century, Tesla had developed an innovative system, an undeniable victory for alternating current. In the history of science and technology, he was the one who triumphed, proving his superiority in the battle for energy. Perhaps Edison, the great inventor and businessman, tried to present his victory as a triumph, gathering laurels in newspaper publications and emphasizing his achievements. But at the heart of this confrontation, the name of another great engineer was forever imprinted: Nikola Tesla. His contribution to the development of electrical engineering was so significant that it entered the history of science forever. The conflict between them, later called the War of the Currents, became the basis for many films and books, finally giving Tesla the central role he rightfully deserved. This quiet genius, long kept in the shadows, received well-deserved recognition after those years. But Tesla was not going to stop there. For him, motors and power plants were just the first steps. His true goal was to create something much more grandiose. In the 1920s, he fully immersed himself in working on a new device, an oscillator. It was a complex instrument designed to convert electrical energy into high-frequency radio waves. In his experiments, he laid the foundation for future radio, long before this term entered everyday life. He thought not only about transmitting sound or signals, but envisioned a system where energy could be transmitted over vast distances invisibly. He dreamed of global wireless energy transfer, of providing electricity to every point on the planet. Soon at the end of the 19th century, in 1899, Tesla moved his vision to a place that became special for him, Colorado Springs. There in the high mountains where the air was particularly dry and pure, he found the perfect conditions for conducting his experiments. What happened there still evokes awe in those who have heard about his work. During one of his experiments, Tesla managed to wirelessly light about 200 light bulbs placed over 40 kilometers apart, using only the Earth as a conductor. He did not use any power lines or electrical grids, only precisely tuned frequencies and his incredible intellect. It was astonishing. He was able to transmit energy over long distances without wires, simply with his unique technology. Local residents spoke of strange, low-frequency sounds heard in the vicinity. Some claimed to have seen light arcs piercing the ground like lightning, slicing through the space. Others said that the sky above Tesla's laboratory pulsed with electrical discharges appearing out of nowhere, creating the effect of a real storm, even though there were no clouds or thunder. The townspeople couldn't understand what exactly was happening before their eyes. But one thing was clear. These phenomena were unlike anything they had seen before. Tesla was lighting bulbs many miles away, as if illuminating the path to the future. In his hands, energy became a powerful tool heralding change. Yet despite this astonishing progress, the world was not eager to support him. Deep down, many understood. Tesla's ideas threatened the foundations of the existing order. They were unprepared for such a breakthrough. Tesla's genius was undoubtedly great, but it was this very brilliance that made him dangerous to those who held power in their hands. Powerful corporations and large industrialists had just invested enormous sums into building power plants, laying wires through cities, and creating monopolies on electricity supply. Tesla's ideas did not fit into their business model. His energy could not be bottled or sold by the meter. It could not be taxed or controlled. He had no intention of selling energy. He wanted to give it to the entire world. And in the world of capital, such a gift seemed dangerous and even threatening. At a height of 47 meters, topped with a copper dome and nearly the size of a house, this tower looked more like a mysterious structure created according to alien technology blueprints than an ordinary radio station. Its appearance was unusual and impressive, a metallic construction that seemed not only high-tech, but almost fantastical. This tower was not intended for transmitting voice or telegraph messages, as many believed. Its main purpose was to enable wireless energy transmission, an idea that could connect the entire world across oceans and continents. Part 4 of 13. The project assumed that electricity would be supplied from a central source, then pulsed through the ground, spread across the globe via metal rods embedded in the earth and underground chambers. This would allow anyone, anywhere on the planet, to access this energy by tuning into the right frequency. Imagine your home being able to catch electricity as easily as a radio picks up sound. Nikola Tesla called this system a worldwide wireless energy network, and he believed every word he said about it. Initially, his ideas garnered interest and support. Among those who believed in his genius was the influential banker and financier, John Morgan. He invested a significant sum, $150,000, an enormous amount for that time. Morgan sincerely hoped that Tesla could revolutionize the ways of transmitting information and energy, opening new horizons for humanity. However, his faith had its limits. When Morgan asked the now famous question, "Where should I put the meter?" it became clear that the idea of free wireless energy did not fit into commercial frameworks, and his belief faded. He realized there would be no controlling mechanism, no system of charging or profiting from this invisible energy source. At that moment, his support disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Funding for the project was cut off, Tesla's reputation was at risk, and he faced difficult, fateful decisions. Despite this, the tower continued to grow and rise, like a mysterious guardian of his dreams. Soon, local residents began to talk about strange phenomena occurring around the structure. People heard radios catching ghostly signals, as if distant voices or noises of unknown origin. Strange vibrations were felt in the ground, inexplicable by usual causes, and sometimes flashes of light appeared in the sky without any apparent reason or storm. These rumors spread through the area like wildfire, attracting increasing interest and concern. Some claim that the tower could transmit energy across the Atlantic Ocean, connecting continents into a single energy field. Others whispered about death rays and secret government experiments hidden behind this mysterious structure. According to some reports, the military began to monitor the site closely, fearing it could become a weapon or a source of dangerous technologies. But after a while, all of this stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The tower was never completed. By 1917, it was dismantled, and Tesla found himself on the brink of bankruptcy. His dreams seemed to crumble into dust, like the blueprints covering the walls of his laboratories, losing all their power and significance. Even after the failure of the Erdencliff project, which he spoke about extensively, Nikola Tesla did not stop dreaming. His health was deteriorating and his resources were running out. But he continued to work, in modest hotel rooms in New York, where he passionately recorded new formulas, sketches of machines and frequencies. He hoped to create devices that could hum with the same invisible energy that had once been sent through the ground from Colorado. The world seemed to have stopped listening to him. His diet was sparse and devoid of excess, and he spent his days in solitude, feeding pigeons on city streets or filling his notebooks with sketches of ideas that apparently would never see the light of day. He lived as a man forgotten by society, surrounded by simple pleasures and dreams that seemed unreachable for most. At that time, the press called him a strange, eccentric person whose ideas and actions went beyond the ordinary, and investors considered him unbalanced and dangerous for their capital. But despite everything, Tesla was not broken. He remained a man who simply found himself excluded from the mainstream flow of life. And this exclusion was perceived as something too revolutionary to become reality, too radical to be accepted. Every time he proposed a new concept or a new version of his energy system, the doors of major corporations and scientific institutions remained closed. The world continued to move forward, choosing other paths of development. He chose fossil fuels because they were familiar and profitable. He chose profit because it was more important than ideas. He chose convenience because it was always valued higher than innovation. And Tesla, a man who sought to give the world something better, a person with great dreams and ideals, was quietly reduced to a legend that received neither recognition nor respect. When he died on January 17, 1943 at the Hotel New Yorker, room 332, he was alone. No crowd, no ceremonial rites, only his last breath and the silence that the world mistakenly took for the end of his life. But this silence did not last long. Several hours after his passing, events occurred that shook society to its core. Federal agents stormed the room where he had lived, and under the pretext of protecting national security, seized all his documents, records, drawings, and unfinished devices. Some of these materials were later returned to his family, some were archived, but significant parts of Tesla's work disappeared without a trace. No access, no explanations, no way to find out what exactly was confiscated or where it went. It was at this moment that the true mystery surrounding his legacy began. Because the idea that Tesla had failed is not entirely accurate. He may have lost funding, his inventions might have been taken, or society might have forgotten him. But he did not lose science. All of his knowledge and achievements still existed, hidden within formulas, sketches, theoretical models, and prototypes. The only thing that had changed was that no one wanted to speak about them aloud. A whole century had passed, and it seemed that everything related to Tesla had been buried forever. However, as the next 100 years demonstrated, time is a long enough span to completely destroy something. Yet the 21st century brought an astonishing turn of events. When energy costs soared to unprecedented heights, fossil fuel usage became increasingly unattractive, and climate change evolved into a global crisis, causing panic worldwide. People began looking back for answers. They no longer did this out of nostalgia, but because they sought a solution. And in the mirror of history, one name grew brighter and brighter: Tesla. His ideas, once considered too unusual or even mad for textbooks, started appearing in various sources: videos on YouTube, forums where knowledge and experience were exchanged, and blogs of amateur engineers. It could no longer be called just a theory. People began experimenting, building devices, tinkering with rotors and magnets, trying to recreate that very dream of wireless, clean energy. At the heart of this quietly gaining momentum movement was a single device, the so-called Liberty Engine, or the engine of freedom. It was not an outstanding invention from a major tech company. Instead of the usual massive dome made from copper strips or sheets, engineers used completely different materials and approaches. They employed small neodymium magnets, extracted from transformer coils intended for microwave ovens. These magnets combined power and compactness, allowing the device to be significantly smaller. For rotors, they used lightweight and durable parts made from an aluminum-silver alloy, making the construction not only lighter, but also more resistant to wear. All of this created the impression of a very simple and modest project, more like an experiment for a school science fair. But everything changed the moment the device was connected to the grid. It became clear this was not just a prototype, but a very serious technological development. Initially, only a few knew about such a device. Some enthusiasts and experimenters managed to record its operation on video. These clips appeared on small channels on video platforms, showing a tiny, neat machine that could light lamps and power tools as if plugged into an electrical outlet. Yet no cables, wires, batteries, or hidden compartments for fuel or other energy sources were visible. Everything seemed magical. How could this device operate without the usual power sources? Comments under these videos kept changing. At first, people expressed distrust and skepticism, assuming that it was all a scam or a forgery. Then reports of amazement and wonder appeared, as if someone had accidentally discovered the secret of the perpetual motion machine. Soon, conspiracy theories emerged, suggesting that this was a hidden technology capable of changing the entire world. Some questioned where the energy was coming from, while others wondered how it was possible, since it contradicted known laws of physics. Later, videos appeared showing the device being disassembled completely. These recordings were made without editing or cuts, only the researchers' hands carefully taking apart each component. On the screen, every wire, coil, magnet, and part could be seen. There were no hidden compartments or secret cameras, only an honest, transparent, disassembled device. It became clear from these videos that there were no batteries, fuel tanks, or secret power sources inside. Everything was very simple: a rotating rotor, a humming coil, and an output. All that was needed to generate electricity. The electrical current produced by the device was stable and consistent. Measuring instruments showed that it delivered 230 volts of alternating current, the same as many homes around the world. And this was no accident or mistake. The tests were repeated multiple times, and the results remained the same. Some independent researchers and engineers tried to replicate the device using different materials and components. Not all experiments succeeded, but many demonstrated a stable and functioning device. The key was precise adjustment, correct tuning of the coils, proper distance between the magnets, minimizing resistance in the circuit. All of this required special accuracy and care. When everything was done correctly, the results were undeniable. The device could operate autonomously without external energy sources and still generate clean, wireless electricity. The energy obtained was quite suitable for use. It could power lights, tools, and even more complex equipment. Such a discovery contradicted the classical laws of modern physics. Some called it a scam or forgery, accusing the creators of fraud. But those who looked deeper began to see something else. They noticed echoes of Tesla's theories, ideas expressed more than 80 years ago. It was not perpetual motion or magic, but rather a special form of energy that we have not yet fully understood, just as the great scientist himself repeatedly stated. As the device, named the Liberty Engine, became more and more popular, it used an unusual technology based on the precise arrangement of magnetic impulses. These impulses created a special magnetic field capable of pushing energy from the rotating rotor into nearby electrical coils. Part 8 of 13. An important aspect was that all the coils, or windings, were tuned with such precision that energy losses during transmission were virtually zero. As a result, no heat or noise typical of conventional motors was generated, and the energy transfer occurred so smoothly and cleanly that it seemed like real magic. However, all this magic was not due to mysticism, but to precise mathematical calculations and engineering solutions. The rotor of this motor was made from a special alloy based on silver and aluminum. This alloy was chosen deliberately. Its main purpose was to minimize so-called eddy currents, tiny swirling currents that inevitably dissipate energy as heat in ordinary electric motors and generators, reducing the device's efficiency. By using a high-purity alloy and a special resin to secure all mechanical components, the engineers from the Liberty Engine team achieved very high assembly precision. This significantly reduced vibrations and eliminated unnecessary energy losses. As a result, the rotor hardly heated during operation, further confirming the effectiveness of their approach. But this is where the most controversial part of the experiment began. Some viewers, especially those with extensive backgrounds in engineering and physics, started talking about the concept of over-unity energy. This term is considered dangerous and controversial in scientific circles because it refers to a system that, according to some claims, can generate more energy than it consumes. All classical physics, based on thermodynamics principles, states that this is impossible. According to these principles, the energy supplied to a system must equal the energy it releases or transfers, without exception. Yet Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest scientists in the history of electrical engineering, once questioned this very first law. He did not do so out of belief in magic or miracles, but because he was convinced that our understanding of nature was still far from complete. Tesla spoke of the existence of invisible radiative energy, the so-called radiant field, which surrounds the Earth and is always accessible to those who know how to harness it. He hypothesized that enormous power was contained within this field, remaining largely underutilized. More than 80 years after his death, it was precisely at this moment that the Liberty engine, whether by coincidence or intention, touched upon this very idea. Skeptics immediately demanded proof. In response, the engineers conducted additional tests and demonstrations. In one such demonstration, the engine was placed next to a concrete wall just over 30 centimeters thick. Behind the wall was a row of instruments, lamps, and various devices. And surprisingly, the engine operated without touching or directly interacting with the wall. After a few seconds, the energy began to pulse and pass through the barrier as if it did not exist at all. Part 9 of 13. The wall did not absorb energy nor block signals. It simply allowed them to pass through. This fact surprised many engineers and scientists, as most of them believe that solid materials like concrete cannot transmit energy without losses. Yet the Liberty engine did exactly that. Transmitted energy through dense material, which seems almost impossible from the perspective of modern science. The heart of this system was not something ultra-modern or miraculous. It was a set of the simplest and most ordinary materials that could be found in any garage or old warehouse. There were rusty coils, magnets torn out of old microwave ovens, and even parts previously used in household appliances. And yet, despite this, the design conveyed a certain precision and meticulousness, as if each component had been carefully calibrated. It resembled the care once invested by Nikola Tesla himself in his drawings and notes. Soon a true shadow began to emerge, hiding behind unexplained disappearances. Items that once seemed familiar and reliable started vanishing without a trace. Along with the objects, blueprints, schematics, and entire threads on forums where people shared their discoveries and ideas also disappeared. It seemed as if someone intentionally erased everything related to this project, as if trying to wipe it completely from memory. Years of painstaking testing, experimental journals, drawings, and diagrams vanished in an instant, as if swept away by the wind. Users who previously actively discussed ideas and shared their results found themselves under a shadow ban. Their accounts were suddenly blocked, messages went undelivered, and new posts simply did not appear. In some cases, devices intended for recording or transmitting information were remotely disabled, as if someone forcibly turned them off, rendering cameras and gadgets useless. Phones froze in endless loading cycles, showing no errors. They simply entered a state of inactivity, as if frozen in time. Everything happened quietly, without explanations or unnecessary words. At first, it seemed like random technical glitches, failures, or glitches. But over time, rumors and whispers began to emerge, increasingly turning into noticeable patterns. Engineers and developers, encountering this, started to notice that at the very last moment, permissions to use certain programs or devices were revoked. Invitations to important conferences and meetings were suddenly canceled, without explanations or reasons. Emails arrived with attached non-disclosure agreements, which were to be signed under conditions that caused bewilderment. Companies that no one knew demanded silence. And then, as if someone quickly erased everything related to the technology, patents, applications for new developments, everything connected to this unique project disappeared as if it had never existed. Part 10 of 13. A small group in Eastern Europe applied to create a device that could operate on a non-linear inductive basis, moving and inherently unusual. And 2 months later, they received a letter stating that their application had been blocked. The reason cited was some undisclosed threat to national security. There were no explanations or avenues for appeal, only a brief notification and an indifferent phrasing. All of this sounds very familiar, because it was meant to be. Because if this device truly worked, it was not just about providing energy for lamps or tools. No, it was about destroying the existing energy system entirely. The system based on coal, oil, natural gases, and all those expense accounts that allow us to use conventional energy. All of this could become unnecessary and redundant, because energy could flow freely, infinitely, and everywhere, across the land, through the sky, inside and around us. But despite all these assumptions, the Liberty engine continued to operate. It hummed quietly at 1,400 revolutions per minute, supplied voltage at 230 volts, and transmitted energy wirelessly over a distance of 6 meters. Everything was carefully thought out. Each coil, each circuit, every pulse of invisible force, all calculated to the smallest detail. There were no tricks, no excuses, no doubts. And this was only the beginning. Because the Liberty engine was not created just to win some debate or competition. It was designed to replace existing energy sources entirely. Initially, people assumed it was only about autonomous power systems, refrigerators, pumps, and small appliances. But the timing was perfect. We live in an era when electric vehicles are becoming increasingly popular, when the goal is to achieve carbon neutrality, and when breakthroughs in battery technology are happening. Governments around the world are building giant solar farms resembling cities and developing networks of charging stations. At that moment, when someone inside a car suddenly uttered its name, as if making a sudden discovery, the entire fight for electric vehicles and the development of environmentally friendly technologies seemed like something very distant, like a memory from long past times. At that moment, it became clear that the movement in this field continues to gain momentum and evolve because it was no longer just about a simple engine or basic principles. No, now it was about deeper matters, about the very idea, about the possibilities that open up, and about the challenges that lie ahead. It was at this moment that one name re-emerged on the scene, one that was being spoken of more and more often. That name was Christian von Koenigsegg, a person who had repeatedly broken the conventional rules of the automotive world, creating engines without distributed components, drive systems without gearboxes, and hypercars that resembled technologies from the future or extraterrestrial developments. His cars looked like works of art, crafted according to the laws of science, surpassing traditional technologies. Now, insiders and experts were whispering that this individual was working on something much larger and more revolutionary. Patent applications he filed hinted at inductive systems with variable frequency and generators based on new field principles. Engineers involved in this project fell silent, and component and technology suppliers stopped sharing information and comments. Somewhere in distant Sweden, rumors surfaced of a prototype hypercar undergoing testing in closed laboratories. This vehicle was unique. It didn't require connection to the power grid, didn't need refueling, and perhaps under the hood concealed a powerful core similar to the legendary Liberty hybrid system. If these rumors are true, then Koenigsegg is not just changing the concept of speed, he is fundamentally rethinking the very idea of energy. Why pay for kilowatt hours when your car can generate its own energy? Why worry about range when the engine never runs out? Why rent batteries or build long chains of charging stations if you can eliminate that need altogether? And this idea, this concept of complete independence, is becoming increasingly dangerous because for many years, free energy was considered something fantastical, a joke, or a conspiracy theory. It was called merely a fabrication, associated with failures and fraudsters trying to push their ideas. But suddenly everything changed. Now people are beginning to see it as reality. They start connecting discussions about Tesla and his theories of radiant energy with the concept of zero-point energy, which exists in quantum physics. Even in the vacuum, where nothing seemingly can exist, energy still persists. This is not just hypothesis or fantasy. It is a fact confirmed by experiments and observations, such as the Casimir effect. In this phenomenon, two ultra-thin plates placed just a few nanometers apart experience an invisible attraction caused by energy fluctuations in empty space. Tesla, unfortunately, lacked modern terminology to describe this phenomenon, but he understood perfectly well. Such energy exists and can be harnessed. Fast forward to 2021. A cartoonist and passionate Tesla enthusiast known as Matthew Inman, or the Old Mill, decided to undertake an important project. He launched a company aimed at purchasing the original site in Urdenkleif, the place where Tesla once worked and created his most brilliant ideas. His goal was to turn this site into a museum, a living reminder of the legacy of the great scientist and engineer. Part 12 of 13. The idea was quite modest, but the public response was very strong. Over $1,300,000 were raised, and even Elon Musk, known for his passion for innovation, made a donation. Thus, in the place where Tesla once tried to revolutionize energy, there are still people who believe in his ideas and strive forward. Could the so-called Liberty engine be scalable and capable of widespread adoption? Could the place that was once a symbol of lost dreams, Urdenkleif, become the point where this dream finally comes to life and finds its realization? These questions are closely linked to the idea that the planet Earth itself could become a conduit for energy capable of wireless transmission. Imagine that electrical energy, which previously required complex networks and wires, could now flow across oceans, penetrate homes, and power cars and vehicles. All of this without the need for cables, shielded systems, transformers, or any restrictions and obstacles. So far, no official confirmation of such possibilities has been made, nor have there been any denials. And if these ideas prove true, the entire history of human discovery and technological progress could enter a new phase of development. After all, Tesla's original concept was not about creating gadgets or devices. It was about freedom. Freedom to use energy, the ability to unlock the forces of nature that humans could master not just as consumers, but as owners. He once said that the spread of civilization could be compared to fire. In the beginning, there was a small spark, a flicker, then a shimmering flame that gradually turned into a mighty blaze. And this very idea of free energy began as a tiny flicker. It was a spark, a hum in a dusty garage, a small flame barely visible, but slowly growing brighter and brighter. This spark accelerates, gains strength, moves from one assembly line to another, from one country to another, spreading across the world. When energy truly becomes free and accessible to all, changes will occur not only in technology, but also in the people who harness it. Then the question will no longer be whether the Liberty engine works, but who is willing to give it the chance to ignite and fully realize its potential. And what will happen if energy becomes truly free and accessible to everyone? What will be the consequences for humanity? These are worth pondering and sharing your thoughts in the comments. If you want to learn more about such stories and ideas, don't forget to pay attention to similar news and discoveries. The next significant event or breakthrough could once again rewrite history and change our understanding of the world. A huge thank you to everyone who watched this story until the end. Your support, interest, and attention are very important to us. Don't forget to stay updated with the latest news and updates so you are always informed about recent events and don't miss our new content.